Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Vegan Spirituality online gathering. My name's Lisa Levinson, and I'm the founder of Vegan Spirituality and also the campaigns director for In Defense of Animals. And it is my pleasure to host this special virtual event, which our gathering, which we have every other month, to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. And if you'd like to do this, you're welcome to explore our website at veganspirituality.com, where you can find a local group in your area to have these types of gatherings in person, or you can join us online. Both are welcome. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to my co-host, Judy Carmen, who is the author of Peace to All Beings and Homo Ahimsa, and she will introduce you to our special guest today.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us. We're so excited about our guest tonight. But before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to honor Karen Davis, who passed away just a few days ago. And she is a true hero for the animals, no doubt about it. The founder of United Poultry Concerns years ago, and was tireless in her animal advocacy. So we will miss her, the animals will miss her, and let's just take a moment to send blessings and love her and gratitude her way. Thank you. Thank you. She was a very special lady. All right, now on to our special guest, Lakshmi Chandrashekar Subramanian. Did I say that right? Close enough? Okay. She is a passionate vegan, a professional vocalist, and independent scholar who brings singing, scholarship, and storytelling onto one platform. She has an MA in religious studies from Stanford, sings and writes about the music of the great Indian poets, saints, and composers. Her contributions include numerous educational insight sections for Hinduism Today, on the musical mystics of India, Surdas for the Encyclopedia of Indian Religions, and Mirabai Sings on YouTube, the transmission of a poet saint in the age of digital devotion, which is in Digital Hinduism. She holds undergraduate degrees in business and Middle Eastern and South Asian studies from Emory University, and was an active member of the interreligious councils in both her alma maters. She serves as a speaker in the Hindu Speakers Bureau and as a Hindu representative in the Interfaith Speakers Bureau of ING. Lakshmi has been a cultural consultant for Syracuse University, Stanford, Sony Music, and Vice Media. Her interest in spirituality and the performing arts began at a young age. She's been trained in Carnatic, vocal, and Bharatanatyam, Indian, which is Indian classical dance, at the Singapore Indian Fine Arts Society. In particular, she developed a love for bhajans and stotras, which are devotional songs and chants, and enjoys singing in Sanskrit, Hindi, and her native tongue, Tamil. She has recorded several devotional albums with her mother and guru Padmini Chandrashekar in her hometown of Singapore. Lakshmi, and that's not all. She creates and performs live shows of electronic bhakti music with her husband, Ashwin Subramanian, Ox. That's his nickname, Ox. He's an award-winning composer, vocalist, and protege of Oscar winner A.R. Rahman. Lakshmi and Ox have over 200 songs and multiple live shows to their credit. In 2013, their music and media company released the Bhakti Movement, a project that modernized traditional songs and was distributed worldwide by Sony. Now, this is about the concerts. With engaging narrative and visual elements, their concerts contextualize the poetry that they sing, thereby educating while entertaining. And my understanding is that they also weave in information about veganism in their presentations. By presenting Hindu bhakti poetry in world, Indian classical, and electronic paradigms, Ox and Lakshmi enjoy sharing the poet saints' vision, that's plural, saints, vision of love, nonviolence, and pluralism with interfaith audiences. So multiple saints, right? They have performed at Stanford, Princeton, Chinmaya Mission, Brahma Kumaris, Global Dharma Conference, the third Global Conference on World Religions in Montreal, the Parliament of World Religions, and other venues internationally. Audiences describe their music as healing, meditative, and transforming. Ox and Lakshmi live in LA with their toddler, Guru, who is also a lover of animals, not surprising. You can listen to their musical offerings. Lakshmi, could you put in the chat where they can listen? Because I tried that YouTube address and it didn't get me.
Let me go ahead and put it in there.
So yeah, put something in there that everybody can use. Because I think everybody will want to listen more after tonight. So to get to our questions, I understand that you were raised as vegetarian by your mother and that you loved animals. You wrote that your mother and grandmother's compassion for all living beings, which included not even intentionally harming an ant, was ingrained in you. This is something that not a lot of us experienced growing up. So we're really in awe of that. So tell us a little bit more about your childhood. It just sounds amazing. I'm unmute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you so much to both Lisa and Judy for inviting me to this amazing panel. Thank you for the warm welcome. It's a real honor to share the space with all of you. I'm excited to be here. So yes, I had a beautiful childhood in Singapore. I grew up vegetarian, and my family has been vegetarian for generations now. In my childhood, even more than being taught by my parents the value of love and compassion towards all living beings, we were shown it on a daily basis. There have been so many instances where I've seen my mother, my grandmother, kind of exercise compassion even towards the smallest of creatures. So there would be times when my mom would say, "Oh, don't harm the ant. Like, make sure you walk on the sidewalk. Don't walk on the grass in case you step on some ants." And the way they would instill in us that sensitivity would be, my mom would say, to us, an ant is a tiny little creature, but to the ant, we're giants. And you wouldn't want a giant to just randomly come and step over you. And similarly, an ant wouldn't want that either. So be careful. Don't harm them in any way. Even unintentionally, don't harm them. Another example is when it would rain and there would be snails, on the sidewalk. And my mom would literally stop, and she does this even today. She would stop, she would take a dry leaf, she would make sure she kind of nudges the snail away from the sidewalk so that joggers wouldn't step over them and crush them. And again, we would see snails being crushed, and it would hurt. It would, you would feel that pain. And this kind of philosophy was ingrained in me from a very young age. In fact, even if we would see meat, we could never ever imagine meat as a source of food. We would think of it as, oh, poor animal. Oh, that must have hurt. Oh, without being able to separate the living animal from what you might see on a plate. So that was the kind of childhood that I had. And there's a very interesting Hindu mantra that that kind of seeks forgiveness for actions that we might do unintentionally. And this is how it goes. Kayena vacha manasendriyirva buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karomi adyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayami. The meaning of this mantra is that whatever I intentionally or unintentionally do, by body, speech, or mind, I surrender all that to the Supreme Lord Narayana and seek forgiveness. So this kind of mantra instills in us humility, that there's this interconnectedness, and we owe something to all the living beings around us. It's not just our world; it's their world too. And similarly, there have been so many stories from my mother's childhood that have inspired us over the years. Stories of her feeding orphaned kittens, or taking care of a wounded squirrel that might have it fell off a tree, and there were these predatory birds circling it, and kind of her taking care of that squirrel, nursing it back to good health, and then leaving it back in the wild. And these were just kind of fun stories when we were growing up, but then as we got older, we realized that these were actually stories of compassion. And even today, if we see like a spider or any other insect, little creature come into our home, we take a piece of paper, we make sure we safely escort it out of the house, and so that we don't instill the idea of harm, of himsa, of killing into our little 3-year-old toddler. We want to pass on what we've learned from our parents, and hopefully that the tradition of compassion can be carried on by the next generation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that song just brought me to tears. So beautiful. And I just love what you're saying, that you were raised that way. It's just so special. And now passing it on to the next generation, to little Guru, and what wonders he may perform knowing these things. So so wonderful. My dad was a hunter, and so he killed lots and lots of animals, and the heads were up on the walls, and that sort of thing. So it was a journey for me to get to where you are. And I do pick up snails. We live on a gravel road, and so they get little gravels on them when they're trying to cross. So I carry water so I can try to rinse them off a little bit, and then put them on the side of the road, and in the direction they were going.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, because if I don't want them to turn around and go back the other way.
Yeah, you don't want to undo all that effort.
All that effort, it's just a huge effort. Yeah. So gosh, your mom is just a beautiful soul, and your grandmother, and that's just wonderful to hear that. So my next question is to tell us about your transition from vegetarianism to veganism, because you were vegetarian in Singapore. So then how did that happen? How did you figure that out? And how did it affect your music and your spirituality?
That's an amazing question. So this actually all started between our drives between LA and the Bay Area. We lived in the Bay Area before LA. And so we would make the drive. And when we were passing by the Coalinga exit, we would, there would be a strong stench. We would look out the window, see hundreds and hundreds of cows near the Harris Ranch area. And it caught our attention. The first time we ignored it. The second time we were like, this is odd. And the third time we had to look it up. So we did, and we realized that these poor creatures are just made to stand there. It's a beef farm. They're made to stand there in like these tiny little spaces. They can barely move. And it to just have that visual again and again over a period of few months, it just it we couldn't ignore it anymore. And so we learned about it, and we couldn't ignore the fact that the beef industry, the dairy industry and beef industry are all intertwined. We couldn't, kind of protect our conscience and say, hey, but we don't eat beef, but we don't eat meat. And so, we're okay. We couldn't do that. We realized that everything is interconnected. And so by being vegetarian, it wasn't enough. And so that's when we started learning more. We read up on things. And then it just so happened that the people we were meeting, the musicians we were collaborating with at that time happened to be vegan. And they shared these incredible stories about their path to veganism with us. For example, there was a flutist, Mr. V.K. Raman, who actually, he's an amazing flutist who lives in the DC area. And he shared with us that one of the reasons he became vegan was so that his music was more pure and he wanted it to have the right energy. And that ideology really resonated with me and Ux. And we thought, wow, okay, what we do is spiritual music. And for it to have the right energy, for us to give it our very best, we got to make some lifestyle changes. And it started with veganism. And so initially we said, okay, we're not going to buy dairy anymore. We're going to stop buying the milk, no yogurt. We didn't grow up eating eggs anyway. And so we made that change. And then after a few months, we realized that, hey, we're cheating. We don't buy milk, we don't buy yogurt, but then we go outside and we have a cheese pizza. We go outside and we're able to enjoy some paneer, which is Indian cottage cheese. And so then we said, nope. Ox was like, yep, we got to change. We got to really commit to this. Let's be serious. Let's commit. And so one day we decided, no more. This is it. And then there was no looking back since then. And definitely it has beautifully impacted our music, as well as the spirituality, because everything impacts the music we create, right? That's a beautiful thing about art. Our thoughts, our words, our actions, everything kind of gets poured into the art in a conscious and subconscious manner. And so we've seen that by listening to our conscience, I think we're able to make better music. And it feels right in a way that we hadn't felt about our lifestyle. There was something that there is a nudge, and I think the lack of awareness was the first part of our lives. And then once we became aware, we couldn't ignore that nudge for too long, and then we made the plunge. And it was interesting actually for us to notice how it was easy for us to come to terms and get convinced by the ideology of ahimsa. Theoretically, it's beautiful, it's a great value. We feel like everyone should practice it. But then when it came time to put it into practice and make some conscious lifestyle changes, and that's when we kind of it almost took real guts in terms of taking the responsibility for our actions and doing something about the changes that we wanted to make. It's interesting too to think about Hinduism and how all of this kind of links with one another. One of the basic tenets of Hinduism, as we all know, is the idea of the supreme consciousness, that there is supreme consciousness. We might call this God, we might term this as Brahman or the divine soul. But the idea that all living beings are individual souls and that they share the same essence as the supreme soul. So one way we can think of this is to think of the supreme soul as the ocean, and the individual souls as waves that come in and out of the ocean. And so when we think of this kind of divine interconnectedness, there is no way but to kind of take the step to practice the ahimsa that we speak of and that we know and we love. when we think of all living beings as divine, then, just as we wouldn't cause harm to ourselves, we just couldn't cause harm to any other living being, however small they may be. So there was no, whether it was an ant, whether it was a snail, whether it was a cow or a chicken or any other living being, a farm animal, or any other animal, it was a life form, and it was precious, and it was our duty to love for it and care for it. So yeah, it was not only, veganism was not only a spiritual path for us, but it was a path of spiritual caring. And it just kind of, it put things into perspective. In the Hindu tradition, we call the cow as Gomata. So this is also one of the reasons why Hindus don't eat beef, because the cow is considered sacred. It's considered nourishing, a symbol of motherhood, a symbol of prosperity. And so we see Hindu priests use dairy, which is considered very precious, as part of their ritual worship. And so, which is why even the Sanskrit word for cow, it's Gomata. So go is cow and mata is mother. So we would always think of the cow as mother cow. Just, it's a similar there's a Sanskrit word for earth. Bhumi is mother earth. So not just earth, but mother earth. So that's kind of where the journey has taken us.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Lakshmi. And so this is really, by going vegan, that really impacted your music and made you feel even closer to the source and the divinity of all things. That's just so beautiful. So you all perform quite a bit, and are you able to get the vegan message across in your performances?
Absolutely. And we definitely do try. So goshalas are cow sanctuaries, and I happen to speak of cows more than any other animals at the moment, only because the cow is a sacred symbol for motherhood, for abundance, and it holds a special place in the Hindu tradition. But that doesn't mean that, it's just the cows that we love, and it's kind of like a symbol for all in my mind at least, and I'm sure in the minds of many Hindu friends. It's a representative of all the animals that we can care about and all the animals that we can love. And so, but goshalas are cow sanctuaries, and having these cow sanctuaries are actually very commonplace in India. Every major city would have these cow sanctuaries, and these are run by Hindu temples. These temples would feed the cows, they would take care of them until the end of their natural lives. And inspired by this, there are many Hindu temples across North America that have actually started supporting cows. They purchase additional land next to the temple, and they kind of take care of the cows, they support them, they get donations for them, and they make sure that they use dairy for their ritual worship, only the dairy that's produced by the cows that they are able to support. So that way, at least they're not kind of relying on the commercial dairy industry, which is the mass-produced dairy. And so we feel that this is a big step in the right direction for the Hindu community. And we talk about these sanctuaries in our shows. So we share photos, we talk about, we give them the names of the sanctuaries, we talk about where they're located across the US, and we ask for people to generously donate. We also talk about our vegan journey and how that's impacted our music, it's impacted our life. And we're just hoping that we can get people to be curious, and just that curiosity could be the first spark. We know for a fact that for Ox and I, it was lack of awareness for many years, and then it was a curiosity that made us learn more and then finally make that switch. And so sometimes we get follow-up questions. We get questions about how being vegan has worked out for us nutritionally, but what we do on a personal level. Do we contribute? And we contribute monthly to some of these sanctuaries to do our small part. And all we can do is to instill some awareness so that, as Oprah says, once you know better, you do better. And that's what we're hoping for.
So the sanctuaries that you're talking about, I know there's some that do not use the milk of the cows. That in fact, I know there's one on the East Coast where she had a herd that came from a group of Hindus,
Oh.
and they just didn't feel right about milking the cows anymore because that involves, impregnating them.
Yeah.
And so she is just taking care of them,
Mm.
and they donate a little bit of money to her to take care of them, but they're never milked again.
Yeah.
And so do you see any progress in these Hindu cow sanctuaries where they might be moving away from using the milk?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've seen both. There are instances where they're not milked, and so they're just taken care of until the rest of their lives. But then there are also these sanctuaries that do use the dairy that comes from it. And we just think of it as it's a step in the right
Yeah.
direction. It's
Mhm.
not where we want to be ideally, but I think not relying on the commercial dairy, and to think of dairy being used as part of ritual worship, it hurts. It just because
Mhm.
the kind of pain that the cows go through, the sacrifice, and it's yeah, it's just so cruel. And so, but that again, it's I think the awareness, and the dairy industry kind of it almost kind of hides the truth. It knows how to hide the truth about this, and we didn't know about the atrocities until we started talking to vegans. We started researching a little deeper. And I think when you're used to doing things a certain way, your parents have done it, your grandparents have done it, your forefathers have done it, and you feel, oh, I'm doing a great job by carrying on tradition. But then, it's a new world, and it's a new world that doesn't respect and revere cows like maybe how things used to be done in the past. And so,
Right. The dairy industry has changed dramatically because of all the mechanization and just the
mhm.
sheer volume of
Yep,
milk that is being demanded by the public, and which supports the dairy industry. So,
yep.
yeah, yeah. So good for you bringing this out into the light for people, especially Hindu people who need to make that transition, and but it's hard because, like you say, it's part of the heritage,
Yep.
and not just the heritage but a very deep part of the spirituality.
Hmm.
So, well, I think we have some time. I've got another question, but in the meantime, could you please sing us a song?
I would love to.
I mean, give us an example of something that you might sing to an audience.
Absolutely. So I thought I could offer a medley of four songs that celebrate Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is a major deity in the Hindu tradition. And these songs actually celebrate Lord Krishna as a friend and protector of cows. So there are many spiritual stories that are associated with Diwali, and Diwali is coming up this Sunday on November 12th. And all of these stories celebrate victory of good over evil, of light over darkness, of hope over despair, and of knowledge over ignorance. And so some of these stories actually celebrate Lord Krishna as a protector of cows. And so these bhajans are Hindu devotional songs. You will hear the names Govinda and Gopala several times. And these are both names of Lord Krishna. These songs are in Sanskrit, and so Sanskrit, as we know, is a very complex and multi-layered language. A specific Sanskrit word can have many different layers and of meaning and interpretation. And so, in this context, when we hear the word Govinda and Gopala, we're referring to friend and protector of cows. So, when you hear the word go in this context, we are referring to our cow friends. And so, here it goes. Govinda Gopala He Nanda Lala राधे गोपाला गोपी गोपाला मीरा के नाथ प्रभु मुरली गोपाला गोवर्धनोद्धार गोपाल बाला राधे गोपाला गोपी गोपाला राधे गोपाला गोपी गोपाला गोविंद 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 गिरिधारी गोविंद गिरिधारी गोवर्धन गिरिधारी श्याम सुंदर मदन मोहन वृंदावन विहारी गोवर्धन गिरिधारी गोपाला गोपाला गोकुल नंदन गोपाला 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 गोकुल नंदन गोपाला गोविंदा माधवा गोपाला केशवा गोविंदा माधवा गोपाला केशवा जय नंद मुकुंदा नंद गोविंदा राधे गोपाला जय नंद मुकुंदा नंद गोविंदा राधे गोपाला गोविंद 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 गिरिधारी गोविंद गिरिधारी गोविंद गिरिधारी. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that was so beautiful. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, let me see. I've gone into another space here. Okay, last question, and then we'll open up for questions from the audience. There's so many spiritual teachers who have wisdom to share, but who are not yet vegan. It's such a beautiful experience to meet you and hear how clear it is to you that ahimsa and veganism are essential to your spiritual walk. Why do you think it is so difficult for so many spiritual teachers and seekers to align their values of nonviolence with their actions toward animals? And what advice do you have for us in order to have compassionate discussions with them?
This is such a great question, and one that Aks and I have spoken about. We've been brainstorming and pondering the same thing. I think there are a few things at play here. So first, of course, the disconnect between ideal and practice, which we're all familiar with in various walks of life. We see that sometimes we believe in something, certain values, but then, when we need to live them, we fall short. And I think a big reason for this is that we're resistant to change. We're resistant to habit. When we've done things a certain way for so many years, we've grown up with it. We want to see what we want to see. We shut ourselves off to reality sometimes because it's easier that way. So there's that. There's the gap between the ideal and the practice. And of course, isn't that what spiritual life is about? It's about bridging that gap. And I think all of us as spiritual seekers, that's a striving that happens throughout the spiritual journey. And so there's definitely that. The other thing is that specifically in the Hindu context, in the ritual worship context, in the olden days, rishis, who are these Hindu sages, these saints, they used to have, the commercial production of dairy that we see today is such a stark contrast to what happened back in the day. And of course, things have kind of turned to the worse, periodically in all these decades. But the idea, I think, was that, we will have these cows, we will take care of them, we'll protect them. If they happen to get pregnant, we'll make sure the calf has its milk, and then if there's surplus, we will take them, we will use it for our ritual worship. And it was seen as a precious commodity, something, and not a commodity, but something just precious that shouldn't go to waste. And so what shouldn't get wasted, the idea must have been that, okay, we can use it sparingly in ritual worship. So that must have been the olden day context that unfortunately, I think some Hindus are still holding on to dearly, just unable to see that things are different today. In fact, when we see certain rituals that take place at the temple for certain festivals, and there are, gallons and gallons of milk being used in ritual worship, commercial milk from the store, it hurts us so much. And one piece of advice that I got from one of my vegan friends, this was before we turned vegan, was that she shared that if you really have to drink milk, don't go for organic. Please don't go for organic milk. Go for regular milk, because once you go organic, we think, oh, that's great. These organic cows are healthy cows and they're treated well. But in fact, when their udder gets infected, they're not allowed to give them medicine, antibiotics to make them feel better. And so these cows that produce organic milk are in more pain. They're going through more suffering to get us that one glass of organic milk. And so when you hear things like that, you realize, oh my gosh, this is real stuff. This isn't something you just hear about. We're desensitized to so many things today in the world that we live in. There's a war that goes on. We think, oh, but it's there. It's not here. We hear about animals being tortured, and we think, oh, but it's there. It's not right here. And I've had friends who say, yeah, but I eat meat, but I don't cook meat. Oh, I can't see the meat. I don't want to see it like that. But I'm able to eat it. And so, but that disconnect, bridging that gap, I think that's where spirituality comes into play. The seeking, the spiritual awareness comes into play, and that's the journey for all of us. But I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of awareness, and so, which is why I'm so grateful to things that people like you and Lisa, you do to kind of bring these events together, bring these people together, and where the hope is that we're hopefully not just preaching to the choir. We're hopefully getting our word out there. And one idea, and of course this is, I'm sure you've brainstormed in the similar way, is to bring vegan events to houses of worship, because the fit and the flow, it's just so it's a great fit between vegan people and spiritual people. Many a times they're both at the same time, but sometimes spiritual people, they're religious, they're spiritual, but they don't practice veganism. Maybe they don't know about it. And so having these events in houses of worship, it's a great way to kind of bring that awareness out there and let people know that there's a path, there's a lifestyle of compassion, and, have conversations. My husband and I attend a beautiful devotional, which is run by some of our neighbors here. And it's a Baha'i devotional, and we love it so much. There are people of different faiths who take part. And so one of our friends, so she asked, okay, so tell me more about veganism. So apparently in the Baha'i faith as well, there's the idea that it's important to be vegetarian. It's important to not eat meat, and not consume animal products. And so, we kind of exchange ideas about, where can you get your protein from? Have some beans, have some, different types of vegetables, greens, protein powders. You have it, you name it. There's so many different ways to get the nutritional benefit, especially in today's world. And yeah, I think just the awareness, having these conversations, especially at places of worship, so that it becomes a spiritual movement. The vegan movement, it already is, but it just, we can kind of further push it a little bit by having even more events.
Yeah, thank you, Lakshmi. And that, of course, is a lot of why Lisa and I started the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, is to get more people who are already going to places of worship to bring people like you into the temple or the church or whatever, and share this and introduce these ideas. So yeah, thank you so much for your thoughts on that, because we're all constantly questioning, how can we get the truth out there about ahimsa? So, but I think it's time to open for questions. Gosh, yeah, we're getting close. So, Lisa?
Yes. Well, what an honor and a treat to have you here, Lakshmi. I adore your singing. It was so beautiful, and your stories and your sharing about not only your background with your family, but also how your own personal journey. It's very moving. It's really a blessing to have you here. And we've got a wonderful group of people who's joined us on Zoom and also on Facebook. So you're welcome to ask questions, and I actually have one I'd like to just start off with, which is, I know that you have some expertise in Diwali, and I'm wondering if you might share that a little bit with us.
Absolutely. Diwali is the festival of lights, the Indian festival of lights, as we all know. And Diwali, the term Diwali comes from the word Deepavali. So Deepavali is Deepam is lamp and Avali is row. So it's a row of lamps. So that's what the word means in Sanskrit. And it's basically a celebration. There are so many aspects to the celebration. So as we know, it's not only Hindus that celebrate Diwali, but it's some Buddhists do, some Sikhs do, and as well as the Jains. And so it's definitely a beautiful holiday that has all these narratives associated with it. In the Hindu context, we have three primary narratives. We have the homecoming of Lord Rama, who's a Hindu deity, and he's kind of like the model citizen. He's the personification of dharma, of righteous living, and so it's his homecoming back to his kingdom. And so it's Diwali. The row of lights were lit so that they welcome their king and their beloved prince back into the kingdom. So that was a story. That's a narrative that's associated with Lord Rama, and this is from the epic, the Ramayana. There's also a narrative about Lord Krishna and victory of good over evil. He destroys this demon who's been kind of causing havoc. And so again, it's righteousness, good always wins evil. That's the narrative. And then with Diwali, there's also the idea of abundance, of prosperity, and goddess Lakshmi, actually, who is the goddess of prosperity and abundance. So she is worshipped, and it's a family tradition to kind of have a Diwali puja, kind of celebrating all these stories, these narratives, and it's a kind of it's a beautiful way. There are cultural aspects to it, theological aspects, as well as, of course, the religious side to Diwali. And it's an honor to be doing this right before Diwali on Sunday. And I would encourage all of you to, if you want to celebrate, if you want to get a taste of it, you can see if there are any organizations putting up, events, dinners, or prayer services at the temple. I'm sure everyone's welcome, and it'd be a nice thing to check out.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing more about Diwali and why it's special to many people around the world. And I wonder, you brought this to, was it Stanford? Isn't that right? A celebration that you shared there?
That's right, absolutely. So Ux and I were guest presenters at Princeton a few years ago, and the Hindu chaplain and the director of Hindu life at Princeton, Dr. Vineet Chandar, he actually started this tradition at Princeton to have Diwali at the chapel there. And so it was a beautiful time. We loved it. We were invited back a few years, and just to see the such a just a spiritual space transformed with color and lights and diyas, which are lamps. It was a beautiful way to celebrate the festival with people across the university. And sometimes that would be the place, that would be the occasion that people learned about Diwali for the very first time. And so it was a way to welcome the community. And so we participated in the Princeton Diwali, and we thought, hey, we should take this to Stanford as well. And so we got Dr. Vinny Chandra's blessing. We spoke to the deans of spiritual life at Stanford, and they thought it was a great idea. And so again, the students, the Office for Religious Life, everyone came together, and we put up the first ever Diwali at the chapel at Stanford. And since then, it's become an annual tradition, and it's a joy to witness. And it's a beautiful collection of reflections, of stories, music, dance, and a way to bring the entire community together.
So beautiful. Well, thank you for giving us a little taste of that today, and also maybe inspiring people to go to their local community and see if they could witness and be part of this. I know in LA, there's been some talk of doing a vegan Diwali so that people can come and enjoy that and all the festivities with vegan food. So that hopefully will come sometime in the near future.
Amazing.
And yeah. And we do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please talk about the sorrow that comes when you create and atone at the same time? And any thoughts on how you might share about veganism without preaching? So this is from Rebecca, who's read a novel with a character who readers have known in 3 various books. So she was inspired by that to ask this question.
That's great. Sorrow that comes from when you create and atone at the same time. Yeah, it's actually very hard to not preach when you believe in something truly. And we've had, and I'm sure both Lisa and Judy and many of us here today have kind of had this difficulty of, you really believe in something and you want to convince and I mean, it starts with family, right? We talk to family and they're like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And then it goes on to friends and then others in the community. And we have these discussions. In fact, we're a little careful not to seem too pushy, to kind of push our agenda through about veganism, about how important it is. And I think it's such a delicate balance between sharing what you need to share and then kind of letting go and having the faith that things will fall into place and they will think through it. It's almost like parenting in a way. You give them what they need, you give them everything you can, and then you let go and, fingers crossed, you just hope for the best. And so I think that's kind of what we've seen happen when we talk about veganism. And yes, there's a sorrow when you see kind of what's going on. And in fact, we feel guilty for what we've done all these years, just not knowing, not caring to know almost. And we feel guilty about that. And then, but then, we kind of reawaken with new resolve, and we say, tomorrow's a new day, and we do the best we can. And the best we can do is to talk about it, create awareness, and just make sure that we're following the right path as much as we possibly can.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it can be, being an advocate sometimes is a challenge when we are thinking about change and how badly we want that. And yet it is up to each individual, at least when it is their choice, is generally when they do it from that their heart and that spiritual place, and that's when I think it lasts, rather than they're doing it for someone else or some other reason than their own personal calling. So and you are such an inspiration. I mean, the music and the way that you frame it in the music, I think, is a nice advocacy tool too, just to bring the conversation into public spaces where people are welcoming it because they hold you in high regard and they have enjoyed this. There's something spiritual that happens when you sing. I know Judy was describing it a little bit, but it definitely, you feel something is happening inside, that there's this love that's just overflowing. And I think that is what people are tuning into, literally. So when you add the values of ahimsa and the stories that you share, it becomes deeply meaningful and transformative.
And what's amazing is that these values of ahimsa and love, they're inherent in the chants, they're inherent in the music. And we see ourselves as really just a tool, an instrument that kind of it flows through, but it's everything that the tradition brings. And if we can open our hearts and tune in a little deeper to hear the call of the saints, the call of love, of compassion that exists in the tradition, that just makes all our hearts sing.
Yes, yes. It's really about taking the meaning of the songs and sharing how you've brought it into your daily life.
Mhm.
You know, that ahimsa and the stories you shared about your family help to give it that context of how far it goes, because that's one of the things that we with our Interfaith Vegan Coalition are working on, is that looking at the golden rule and expanding it to all living beings, all animals of all kinds. And that's what you've done with the choices you're making in your life, and also in the songs, applying them to all creation, all creatures, great and small. So yeah, well, what a treat. Such a treat to have you here. And I think I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions. People are very happy about what you've been sharing. Such a beautiful talk. So much clarity. Awareness is key. Very well done. So we're getting that. And there's a person who actually we've had on as a guest previously. Dolly is her name, and she produced a film called The Land of Ahimsa. And she's been joined us on Facebook and is really loved your voice and was sharing some of her thoughts. And hopefully we can connect the two of you. I think it would be a nice
Love that.
friendship. Wonderful. So I think that those are our questions for now. And maybe what we can do is move into our closing. Oh, looks like we've got one more question. This is from Ali, and he's saying the International Society of Cow Protection, which is run by some Christian devotees, recommends that bulls be subjectively, ethically used to till the land and only use the surplus milk from the cows after the calves have had their share. In your value system, would such a system be mutually beneficial to the bovines and the humans?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Because on the one hand, yes, maybe. But on the other hand, now that we know that, it's such a cycle of just use and abuse, when we get into that cycle, when we get into that system, is it right to, it's one thing to, if a cow is not impregnated if it's not impregnated in order to produce more milk and kind of keep the cycle going on, that's one scenario. But if we have cows that are, they keep having their calves, and yes, even if we give their calves the milk that they may need, but then to have that surplus and to depend on that surplus, that dependency slowly becomes, it should not go from dependency to abuse. And that's whether humans have the value system, the ethics to make sure that that line is not crossed. Now that's when, things get a little tricky. And so, yeah, I think it's something that we need to tread carefully.
Good answer, Lakshmi. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the value that animals are not ours to use,
yes,
is pure ahimsa, and it's so simple. So moving away from using bulls to till the land and cows to produce milk for humans is definitely the direction to go. But It takes time to get that value system totally into, because it's been thousands of years when people thought animals were ours to use. Now we know they're not, and we're trying to help other people understand that, and that is true ahimsa. Just that's my favorite word in the whole world.
And you even wrote a book about it. Homo ahimsa is the title of one of your books. And yes, that I think that is a good question and a tricky one, because the values come into question, and anytime we want to make things easier or cheaper or faster, then the animals tend to suffer. And also part of this idea of ahimsa and of animal liberation is really that animals are free to do what they would like for their lives, just as we are. And so that's that they can't do that when they're
being used in any way.
Yeah, in that situation where they're not actually, they might not be what they really want to do in that moment there. So might be labor and something that we're really forcing them to do. It's not something they're choosing.
I've actually heard that with the, some of these ISKCON cows, they are given, I mean, they're played Krishna Kirtan, which is spiritual music, bhajans about Lord Krishna, the Kirtan, as they're being milked. And so their milk is even, it comes in larger quantities, and they're happy cows, and they're, kind of, it's a tough one, because and of course that to hear that made me really happy, and to think that, oh wow, these, they're kind of the religiosity and the spirituality and the taking care of the cows are all kind of interconnected. They come together in such a practice when we hear of it. But again, it's that tricky place where, it should not, will we be responsible enough to never cross that line? And that it's an honest answer to say, I don't have faith. I don't have faith that we would be that responsible, and that, kind of, we expect ultimate sacrifice from these animals, but we aren't willing. We're not ready to make those kind of sacrifices to just one part of our diet. And so, are we asking too much?
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. And also Awi, who asked the question, says thank you as well.
Thank you for the question.
So maybe we'll bring our gathering to a close. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening, and for Judy for co-hosting, and Lakshmi for being such a wonderful guest. We're very just thrilled to have you here. And perhaps, do you have something for us as we close this evening?
Yes, I'd love to offer a prayer, a chant. This is how it goes. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings experience prosperity and abundance. May none in this world suffer. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May all beings of this world always be happy. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Thank you. Wow, what a perfect note to end on today. And it is a blessing. And
Thank you all so much. Thank you to Lisa and to Judy and to all of you who have tuned in and who have shared this hour with us. We really value it. We value spending the time sharing insights and hearing from you.
Oh, yes. So this is our opportunity to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. And so we thank everyone. And we hope that we see you the next time. We do these every other month. So please do, tune in. And you're welcome to reach out to us and to connect. You can reach us at interfaith@idausa.org if you'd like to tune in, or veganspirituality@gmail.com so we can stay connected. Meanwhile, we hope that you enjoy a wonderful Diwali. Thanks to everybody for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Namaste.
Namaste, vegan.
Namaste, vegan love. Thanks so much, everyone. Good night, all.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye, Lakshmi. Thank you so much. This was just wonderful.
Thank you both very much too. Loved it.